Hello and welcome to the Artist Spotlight with myself, Simi Jackson, and my guest today, Laurie Putnam. Laurie is a contemporary American impressionist based out in Nashville, Tennessee. Laurie's exhibited with many respected organisations, including, but not limited to, the Salmagundi in New York, the Oil Painters of America, the Laguna Plein Air Painters Association, the Californian Art Club, and the American Impressionist Society. The list goes on. And I'm so excited to share with you all my friend and my adopted family member, Laurie. Here we go. Yay!
Hey!
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. It's so good to talk to you.
I know.
Love being here.
Well, it's the nearest thing we can do to being in person when we can't be in person. So,
Yeah.
it's been a long time.
I can't wait till I can hug your face. But
I know.
But this is great. This is great seeing your face, though.
Well, I want to ask you something and kick it straight off because I put it out there that I was going to be interviewing you, and people have written in a couple of questions, and I've got my own questions. And I just want people who don't know you or I together here to know it's kind of difficult to interview a close friend because I already know so much, but obviously there's more to learn. But I want to ask you about your awards that you've had recently. I know that you won a big award. I saw that on Facebook. So tell us a little bit about that one first.
Okay. So I won the grand prize for the plein air salon. It's it's interesting, because it takes a year. That competition is a whole year long of entering.
Really?
And so it ends up being, like 8,000 to 10,000 entries.
Wow.
That get entered. And then every month or month and a half, I forget how long it is, but there are category winners and first, second, and third place winners for each of the little mini competitions. And 2 of my pieces had gotten first place. That's 2 completely different judges. So, that was I just thought that was the best. I thought I can't believe that, but anyway, that put them into the finalists category. And then that narrowed on down to the top 25, and they were both still in. And I just was bouncing off the walls. But let me tell you, I thought, okay, that I can't get any better than this. And the night of it was a live ceremony on Facebook, and they told all of the top 25 to be available, but we couldn't see what they were doing because of the setup. We were just sort of hanging out on a Zoom thing. And Mark and I were like finishing up dinner. Mark's my husband, as you know. And I had on sweatpants and a t-shirt. And I just never expected anything,
No, yeah.
It was kind of dark, and I kept the lights down because I thought, oh my goodness, I don't even have makeup on. And so I was just sitting there in the shadows, really. And they are announcing all the level awards, the honorable mentions and the third place and the People's Choice. And they announced that I got People's Choice. And I was so excited. I thought, I can't believe I got People's Choice. And so then all of a sudden they're ready for the first place, which is like a $15,000 check. And somebody knocked on the front door. Now, Simi, you've been to my house.
Right.
Nobody comes to my front door at 8:45 at night. We're in the middle of nowhere. And so, do you know Seth Tummins?
I know Seth, yeah. Yeah, I do.
And he had been sworn to secrecy, and they had gotten, through Dawn Whitelaw, they had gotten together and made one of these great big publishers clearing out, one of these great big fake checks.
Yeah.
And he was standing on the front porch with that big fake check
for me for
$2,000. And so I didn't even know because like I said, we couldn't see what was going on on Facebook. I didn't realize that the 2 awards, the People's Choice and the first place, were for 2 different paintings.
Right.
I thought the same painting
Yeah, no, I didn't
had
know
gotten
that.
both awards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so then, of course, my husband, he's over here figuring up the odds. What are the odds? He's just going crazy. But yeah, it was such an honor because I actually had picked a different winner altogether. I mean, I really and truly had no idea.
Yeah.
And my favorite was, I was just waiting for them to call that name.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's still, if it wasn't for the big fake check over in the corner, I don't think I'd still believe it.
Feels real, right? Oh, that's amazing. So, tell me then. I know this is probably a hard question, but I want to ask it. What feels more special, the People's Choice Award or the actual grand prize, or is it not that it can't be compared?
Well, of course, People's Choice. You realize it's super special, but also it is the kind of award that I've seen artists get because they had more friends vote. And so, not to put myself down, but you want the art to win, not just a popularity contest. And so, yeah, it's super meaningful to get People's Choice. But there was a panel of judges that chose the grand prize. And after it going through that many steps, that it just still seems unreal. But the very best part of all of it was the support, the outpouring of people congratulating me, texting and calling and, on social media. I've never felt so loved in my life.
Oh.
People really happy.
Yeah.
Not just, I just couldn't believe it.
Well,
Facebook shut me down because I couldn't, there were too many people. It was just lovely, that kind of love.
Well, it's well deserved. It doesn't shock me. I think it's been a long time coming, if I'm honest. But it's probably overwhelming for you if you weren't expecting it. But that's amazing. So tell people who've never entered into a different kind of any kind of award ceremony or any kind of exhibition. How do you decide what you were going to put forward? What was the process there?
Well, this one's a little bit different. So I'm going to talk because there were so many months to try. So I'm going to talk a little bit, I think, more generically.
Yeah.
It's a competition, and the thing that has to be first and foremost is that it looks like it's uniquely you. I see a lot of people who enter things and they look to see who the judge is, and then they try to send something they think that judge would like, and it does not work. I mean, we don't need little mini whomevers running around trying to, because you'll always be second or third or fourth or 500, of the Scott Christensen type, and so why send something that looks like something he would like? Be you. Right. Second, it does help to get other people's opinions. If you've got it narrowed down to a handful of pieces, and you have people who will tell you the truth, people you really respect. Say pick your top two, and they won't all hit on the same, but they'll somewhere in there you'll start to at least feel like, I can't believe they chose that one. And you start to see your own inner preference of what you think is best. Where before you were just maybe grasping at something. And then you'll get people, the people that you trust telling you, you'll go, yeah, that's right. I'm so glad that they liked this one that I also liked. And, in plein air competitions, which I used to do a whole lot of those, I would always line the paintings up against a far wall and walk away. If I'm choosing like 2 or 3 for my main competition pieces. and just walk away, not even look at them. And then when you turn back around, what grabs you from the other side of the room is what needs to go in.
Yeah, that's a good...
because it's going to grab the judge,
Yeah, yeah. And then with that, then would you put them as framed or would you leave them?
No, it's framed.
Yeah.
Not in, like if they're judging something by photograph, then they don't want the frame.
Right.
But if they're judging it in person, then they want it framed.
So you would decide it then based on with the frame in it too?
Yeah.
Touching on that for a second, how do you know what the right frame is? Do you try lots of different frames? Have you got that down now that you know, or?
I can generally tell at least what doesn't work. If I have a lot of frame corner samples here, and I have some frame makers that I will send an image to them and they'll send back suggestions. And occasionally there'll be something that I never would have thought of that is just so perfect because that's what they do. But if I'm just looking at the frame samples here, sometimes it's easier to tell what doesn't work because there might be a couple of choices that really would work. And so then I have to consider the potential client, the potential venue, which is going to be better, because there are some venues that just have a different set of criteria, and so that plays into it as well, And so some of my pieces have much more expensive frames on them because they are in a setting that requires that.
Yeah.
Some of the pieces are in something that I think is perfect, but maybe is not quite as expensive. And so it's not necessarily even price based, but it does play into it depending on the exhibition space.
Yeah, I guess I never even thought of that. On that thought, though, are you saying then that you price your work based to include the frame, and you would give that thought as well then on your total? Do you literally add the frame onto the total, or how does that work?
Right. Yeah, and so if it's let's take for an example a really large piece that has a custom carved frame that has some gold, whether it's an inlay or something, depending on how much gold, of course, it'll be very, very expensive. And so if you are sending it to an exhibition or to a gallery that is going to take sometimes as much as 50% of the selling price, then you not only have to add the price of the frame, you have to double the price of the frame, because the gallery is going to get 50, which is leaving you paying for the whole frame if you don't double
it. Of course, yeah.
So that's why, generally speaking, most of my pieces that are the approximate same size start out the approximate same price. But then I have to factor in, yes, but that one, the frame cost so much that the painting has to cost more to cover that.
Of course.
Of
course. Yeah, I mean, I think framing's could be a whole 2-hour talk, just on the importance of frames and how to frame properly and how to hang and, all the ins and outs on that. I think it's fascinating. One thing folks always ask us is that, would you varnish your painting before or after it's in a frame? What's the answer there?
Yeah, you want it varnished before it's in the frame because, and a lot of times I see where people, they'll be in a hurry and they get a painting out on the market, and then, they ask somebody to varnish it for them, or they go by the gallery and say, okay, it's drier now, can I varnish it? And they don't take it out of the frame. And of course that leaves a piece underneath the lip of the frame that's not varnished. And so you want it varnished and really dressed up and ready to go before, it puts on its final accessory and goes out the door. And varnish is an important thing. There are a lot of different thoughts on the aesthetic of it because, do you want it glossy? Do you want it matte? Do you want it satin? All of that. But it's also a matter of using a good varnish that allows the painting to retain its natural color and not yellow.
I would love to pick your brains on that with the matte to the satin to the gloss, and then the difference between the three, and then go for a good varnish. Tell us, for folks who don't have a clue about varnishing, can you tell us a little bit about why it's important, what its purpose is there for? Yeah.
Well, because modern pigments are so well made that there was debate a few years back on if you even still needed varnish, because varnish was originally intended to protect the painting and, from dust and things like that. But of course, old-fashioned varnishes also allowed the paint surface to crack and yellow over time. It's just what they were made of. But then modern varnishes began to be, developed, and specifically to just provide, certainly their original intent of no dust, but UV protection so that the colors remained beautiful rather than, getting damaged. And so, but there was a debate about, if paint is really so good, do we even need that? If paint, if we have more permanent alizarin now, do we need a varnish? And I think that you do. I think you definitely do. And so I fall into that camp because I want my paintings to be around after I die.
Right.
And the aesthetic, though, is a personal choice. It kind of goes as far as the amount of sheen or gloss that you want. And it sort of goes in trends, almost like frames do. And for a while, being extremely glossy was sort of in, but then people realized you couldn't really hardly see the painting if it had the wrong kind of light on it. And then people went with a very matte type of finish, and then that didn't quite make the colors sing right. And so it's really a personal preference. And a lot of these more modern varnishes now, like the one that I use, it's really so easily personalized. I mean, I could with just a little cold wax medium make it a little less shiny. And I can really adjust it as much as I want. And I do different surfaces on different paintings depending on the aesthetic I want for the end.
Do you ever get a collector ask you? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Do you ever get a collector ask how, if they want, or if it was a commission, they would ask for it in a certain way? Or do they take your judgment on that?
I've never had anybody ask me about that. I have had people say, I want to talk to you about the framing, or I want to see what framing you've done before I decide. But I've never had them make a suggestion about varnish. I don't think a lot of collectors even know their things are varnished. Maybe people have been collecting all their lives, but a lot of people have no clue.
Yeah. Yeah, they expect you to know as the artist and have that understanding.
They don't even know what that word means.
Right.
They just know they got a painting, it's ready to hang on the wall.
Yeah. So I guess something that folks would, you're brilliant in so many ways, but one of the things that you really excel at is the finer details. And you've got it down to a fine art where you have, your business cards are just perfect. They've got the information on there that you want people to see at the time, not just your phone number or your email address, which I thought was such a little genius idea. And then the other thing is when you send a painting out, you put certain paperwork in there, right? So what's the method behind that? Because that's something, let's pitch now a 25-year-old that has finally got the first commission, or or a 40-year-old or a 60-year-old that wants to give something for Christmas coming up, what would you say they could do as like a little starter set that makes them look a little bit more official, you know?
Well, before you ever even get to that part, you need to make sure that you have a database of your work with the information and a good photograph.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you think, oh, I'm never going to do this, full time. Maybe you're just starting out. Maybe you don't know everything. I have every painting I have ever done back to the worst ever in the database, and everything about it, every place it's ever been exhibited, and that adds to the provenance of the piece.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's a really bad piece,
Right.
a really old bad piece, when it's dug up in somebody's attic 100 years after I die, they'll go, oh my goodness, look at this really bad piece. This was our early period. But so I have that information at my fingertips, first of all, because it's input when the painting is painted. So it makes it easy then when I ship a painting off to somebody, to send their business, to send, of course, my business card and a nice, lovely thank you note, included, and then a certificate of authenticity that lists when they bought the painting, what they bought it for, a little information about the painting. I can certainly provide easily the entire provenance. Are they the first people to have it, or is it, has it been somewhere? Has it won an award? Was it in a magazine? What about this painting that might make it special down the road? And of course, if I'm selling a piece and I actually know who the piece is going to, I have that option. It's not just selling from a gallery. So we're talking about a more direct involvement. I always write something on the back of it, because even if they lose all of that paperwork or whatever, on the back it will say, to my very best friend ever, Semi. And thank you so much for being a part of my life, when we were painting together in States, and the date. Yeah. I don't date the front of my paintings, but I date the back. And it's more meaningful to people. I mean, I love it once I get a piece of art, if that's done.
Yeah, it is.
So I'd say you want to take the time to write a nice little thank you note and to send something about the piece. People want to know about the painting. Yeah. And a few of the pieces, like the one that we were just discussing that won the award, I just before it won the big award, I had some cards made, and the painting had already sold. So after it sold, I sent a bunch of the cards to the lady that bought it, because I thought she would probably love having some of those cards of a painting that she owns, and I sent her a copy of the magazine that it's on the cover. Yeah. So, keeping up with those types of things, even after the sale, that's really important, to just think of little things that are special, that aren't expected. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got it. You hit the nail on the head there. It isn't expected, but when it happens, boy, do you feel special. And I know that you do that with a $400 painting or a $15,000 painting. I guess a question, though, that I have with that, now I know the answer, so forgive me, but I'm going to ask it because people won't know the answer. How do you keep on top of that artwork archive? Quite literally, right?
I do. I quite literally. I do use a program online. Artwork archive. Yeah. And it's, the reason that is a fabulous tool. I used to use a database that was so cumbersome because I have that in me, that need to be organized and know everything about everything. But the reason that online method now is so great is because I can decide to keep it all private. I can turn a page into a public page and sell something from there. I can put together inventory lists when I'm sending off paintings to galleries.
Mm-hmm.
I can put together a portfolio sheet when galleries say, hey, what do you have available?
Mm-hmm.
Just like that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just so quick. And, and the thing too is if I'm out of town and I run into somebody and they say, oh, I've got that painting of yours. I think it was called blah, blah, blah. I can look on my phone, see what they bought, get my brain around where they got it and it's a little something about them and, see them at the opening a few minutes later. And, it helps them feel a little more like I care,
Yeah, of course.
Because I do care. You just can't keep it all up here, though.
No.
You can't keep it all up here. So
you
want them to know.
I want people to know that we're not getting paid to say that about Artwork Archive either.
No.
But they're just good people. They're a good family business, right? That are doing a really great job for painters. And I know loads of people that have used their websites to store it. So I'll make sure that I put a link. In fact, I'll link it to yours. Is your page public? Is it a thing that you can see it publicly on there?
It is. It is not. I just have mine private. So,
so I'll just post.
I use it for me.
Yeah, which is brilliant. I'll post then to the generic thing that people can then have a look at. But I've definitely heard lots of people say how good it is at organising. And you're right, it is the finer details that it doesn't matter where you're at in your career as an artist or as a businesswoman, or a businessman. It's the little extras that people remember. That's why Mum and I put thank you notes in the orders. At Christmas we put chocolates in and everybody loves them. And it's the little bits of extras, that make people try and remember you. So you've got that down amazingly well. So I want to now ask you a little bit about your method on outside to inside, because most of us will know you as a plein air painter, but obviously there's times when you're just absolutely working away, chiseling away in the studio to make the pieces that we then see on the walls in the big shows, big exhibitions. So how do you manage that differently, to being outside to then coming back in?
Right. I am so glad you asked that, because there's a real falsehood that just because something is painted in one situation or the other, it somehow makes it better. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that started with plein air festivals, plein air competitions, and certainly I am grateful to those because they helped my career so very much. But I'm equally grateful now that I can just paint in plein air for more growth and learning and fact finding. As opposed to it being a product, that you put on the market. Now, it doesn't mean that sometimes they aren't worthy of putting on the market. The point is, it doesn't matter. I'm more likely and out there looking for answers. Recently was painting in the studio, and, I have really large windows all across the north side. And I was painting from a photograph. And I just wasn't getting something right. And it happened to be the exact type of lighting outside. And so I ran outside and stood on my deck and went, of course, that's what it would do. Duh. And so to me, anytime I'm studying outdoors, it's to aid what I do in the studio rather than to produce a piece. Now, I'm not held to that. I'm not held to that fact that I learned. What happens when I get inside then is I can be creative, use the knowledge to be creative. And so it frees me up to do that. I can say, this photo has absolutely nothing to say for it. Well, as a matter of fact, the painting that won that award, it doesn't look like the photo at all. But but different experiences that I'd had in plein air, plus some experiments I had done in the studio. All of that came together, and I just created that piece. And creativity, when you put knowledge and creativity together, it's when you really start to love the craft, you know, to become more, I won't say a master, but more masterful. You know, you become, it's like the best of both worlds. You're not just taking what's fed to you, but you've had so much fed to you that you can make really good choices. And so when I'm working in the studio, it is helping, it is getting help from what I've done outdoors. If I happen to be painting outdoors and it's a situation where the piece has to work, you know, a demonstration for a workshop or, you know, whatever, then my work in the studio helps me there because I know things that, yep, that's the way it is, standing here looking at it right in front of me, but that will not work in a final piece. You know, for knowledge, it's one thing. But if I'm painting a piece, I need to avoid that situation. You know, so they help each other, I think.
Yeah, I guess my question then is, where do books come into that? I can see so many books behind you, and you know, you've got to be of a certain skill set. And I know this as someone who paints outside, and that's a very loose term. I think the word would be make a mess, big time, outside. But you know, the point is that even though I'm outside and I've got the reference in front of me, I am not seeing what you're seeing. Right? We know that, it's a fact, and it's a shame, but I'm trying. But the difference is, you know what you're looking for, and you've got to see what you're looking for. Have you learnt a lot of that through books or through other people's workshops? Or because I know you didn't go through a formal art education like that, so tell us everything more.
You know, well, I think you learn everywhere. You know, you learn from books, you learn from other artists, whether you're actually in a workshop or you're just, you know, looking at their work. On the walls of the studio, I don't have my work. I have the work of my friends, you know, and I don't care if I have looked at that Kwang Ho painting 400 times. If I'm in a different place today than I was a year ago, I learned something else from that painting. And so I think we're all little sponges, you know, because as artists, we are so open to information and what we can gain from whatever's in front of us. And so the books sometimes serve to inspire me. Sometimes, you know, I'm just kind of stuck and I need to stop thinking about what I'm doing and sit and look at something else, you know. And that could be social media and I go down a rabbit hole, or, you know, it might be somebody that I think, you know, I just need to look through some of those works today. And it can also be depressing because you think, wow, why am I trying? Why did I look at that? But I don't know, that these books are actually categorized up here and by the Laurie system. And there's a section that is more how-to, which I don't refer to so much anymore. I did, of course, when I first started, but it doesn't mean I don't still thumb through them for the pictures. I just don't read them anymore, you know, but just to remember some things. But there are lots of books up here that are just reference books of, you know, particular artist, you know, an archive of their work, or it is just inspiring.
Okay, I've got a question for you. You need to run to the back of the room and pick 3 books. If there was 3 books there that you couldn't go home without, I know you're at home, but which 3 would they be?
Well, I could pick the ones that are down the most often.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, So these are the ones that just happen to be down most of the time. Doesn't mean that I don't, occasionally pull down, Sergeant in particular, who doesn't want to look at John Singer Sargent, whatever. But so a very good friend of mine is on top. I'm just going to go in the order that they were laying over there on the hearth. And I'm always telling him that I push his books over my own. I have actually a book. Okay. But when somebody says, what are the best books out there? I say Kevin McPherson. And I have all of his books. Actually, his book, his first book was I picked up in a bookstore before I had even any idea who Kevin McPherson was. I mean, I had probably held a paintbrush in my hand, that's all. And so it just is such a delight to be such good friends with him now. But every one of his books is a good book. Every one of them. And so if you could say, I'm going to start a collection, that's who you would buy. Okay. And they're available in English and Chinese. So
there you go.
Anyway. Okay, so the next one in the pile is Sergey Longart.
Sergey Longart.
Yeah. Now I don't paint at all like he paints.
Can I be totally honest with you? I had never heard of it. Where did you come across this book? Where did you come across this painter?
When I first started studying with Dawn Whitelaw and a lot of people in her group, that's how I learned about a lot of people that, because I was so new, I didn't know anybody. And that's where I first learned about him. And also my favorite, Soroya.
Is Soroya your favorite?
I have so many of his books, and I'm not saying everything he did was great. I mean, that would be ridiculous to say. Which is why I burn a lot of paintings as soon as I possibly can, because I don't want them to ever get out in public. But there's so much good information, even in the worst of his paintings, and I use him a lot to teach by, because he isn't all about just light and shadow. He isn't all about just color. He is about a lot of different things. And so I can use his work as examples to students for different ways to think about a scene, the exact same scene, the exact same subject, So I had the privilege of getting to visit his home in Madrid years ago when we were living in Italy, and I walked in, it was his studio, and I just walked in and I started bawling. I just cried for hours and hours. I mean, I know they must have thought this woman is crazy, because I know I didn't want to leave. And even though it's obviously smaller, my studio that I'm in now, my husband started kind of working on a napkin, the same proportions. It's the same proportions as Sororia's. It's just smaller. Because he just said, you just looked so good in that room. Those proportions looked right for you. So, anyway.
That's amazing. Well, that is a great segue.
One more.
Sorry.
I have one more.
Sorry, go. Yeah. Wait.
Lynch Meal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Fabulously different voice. And so sometimes just looking through here reminds me I don't have to be, I can have a different voice, Yeah. It's really good to look through this book for that reason.
I feel like that the painting that you won the award with recently that we talked about, what was the title of it again? Was it
Safe Harbor?
Yeah, I feel like that was a different voice for you. I feel like that was really so different and so unique. Yeah, really. Did that come from anything like that, where you felt like it could be a different voice? or did it just feel right?
It's interesting because a lot of times I have that voice, but it gets sucked out of me, as I'm painting. And it will begin with that voice. But somewhere something gets in my head, messes with me, and I lose it. I lose that voice. So whenever I do have one that feels like it comes across the way I want it, it's really kind of rare. And that just happens to be one of those that did that. Because the temptation is to continue just sucking the life out of it.
Right.
And so making yourself stop when it's time to stop is really the biggest thing. And as I said, that one was a totally creative piece too. It wasn't. That's helpful when I'm creating more than looking at a reference.
A friend of ours, Daniel Keyes, he told me once that his hand is 2 years behind his brain.
Oh, yeah.
Is that something you agree with?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, you definitely have knowledge before it comes out the end of the brush. But another part of that is you have to have the time to get to that point. And we're all so busy doing what we have to do that I can find myself sometimes entering a place in my mind and it's starting to happen. And then, it's time. I have to go. I have to go now. Have an appointment to mentor someone. And it's just there's that we don't give ourselves enough just time to play, time to experiment and explore what's up here too. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to say before I cut in, sorry about that with the final book, but that was a really good segue for me to talk to you about how you teach, because I've seen your lesson plans, and I know I say it, and I know that you probably still don't believe me, but I honestly believe you are one of the best teachers I've seen out there, and it's that doesn't come from a place just because I love you. That's from a genuine place of me watching students get feedback from you and them actually getting it. They understand it. They are able to level up, and the process that you go through actually makes sense. And I think if you can remember, can you tell everybody about when you came to Yorkshire a couple of years ago and you painted my mum's greenhouse at the end of the I don't know if you can remember, but I'm hoping you can. And the lesson that you explained to them, you made them do like 3 or 4 different processes of that one piece, right? And that was the idea was,
Yeah, I remember that so clearly, actually, because first of all, it was my first time to be there, and it was your mom's lovely, lovely gardens that were coming in to be. I can't believe I haven't seen them. I can't wait to see them again. I haven't seen them in so long, but and so I do remember. And that particular day was an overcast day, and so there's a real lesson to be done in that. There's a real lesson in learning to see and appreciate that beauty and that kind of color, and so you're teaching students that, especially if they're generally, light and shadow, strong, whatever painters, they have such a new vision for paintings that they've never seen before. If you could just get them to a place to appreciate how much more beautiful really that is, And so, they had a kind of a tough time because it was a new idea for so many of them to paint in a more local tone approach. and to study, I remember one painter in particular, he's a really good friend of yours, and he did such a lovely job of the flowers against your Rosemary's house and the workshop there. And I could tell that he had that eye already to be able to do a different to see differently, and it's a hard lesson to get people to see that sometimes. But to me, that's my job, is to help somebody actually learn to see differently. And they're going to see differently than I do.
Yeah.
But they definitely need to at least see differently than everybody else, that they've always seen, So.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, trying to see differently. I'll never forget my first workshop I did. I was with Jeremy Lipking and those guys out in the Sierras, and I was staring at this mountain. This will make you laugh. It's embarrassing, but I'm going to tell you anyway. And we were looking at this mountain, and I'm crying at this point, and Jeremy's like, what's wrong? Why are you crying? I was like, I can't paint the mountain. And he said, it's purple. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's brown. And I couldn't figure out what it was. So then I kept running over to his palette when he wasn't looking and pinching colour off of his palette. I don't recommend this to just any old student. And at that point, I put a little piece of his colour on my palette, and I would then mix as much as I could to try and get that colour. And I thought, if I've got his colours, I'm going to be able to do it. I'm halfway there. Right?
Yeah.
Needless to say, it didn't look anything like a mountain, but I made an effort. But it was about seeing, and that's what you're so good at, And
I do believe that we all see color differently, and I've actually read a lot about that, and have researched a lot about that because I have such a strange color sense to some people. And I've had students argue with me, that's a really pretty color, but that is not what you're seeing. Like, yeah, sorry, dude, that's what I'm seeing. No, that's not what you're seeing. I mean, I love that you're using it. I mean, I'll just go on and on. You're like, nope, that's what I'm saying. But what is really great is when you see the look on somebody's face and suddenly they see it. They see something different than they've always seen.
Yeah.
And I had a student that happened in Greece. There's a whole lot of white in Greece. And it's not white. It's not white at all.
No.
We just think of it as white. And I can remember her frustration, and I can remember the look on her face when she saw it. And I'll always remember that about that student, that was a moment for her. And so a lot of it, of course, is that color, people being able to see the color, and not just taking what has been fed to your brain all this time, But then you're right. Then your next step is to figure out how to mix that color.
Yeah. I'm laughing because if I could only find the piece, I would show it you. I actually wanted to just say something there about colour, and I know that one of your close friends, Dawn Whitelaw, has been hugely helpful and influential to you and taught you lots, and you've probably taught each other lots, I have no doubt. But I remember once I finished the Portrait Society, and I was driving down from Atlanta down to Florida. I think I was meeting you, actually. I probably left you and met you. And down to our good friends at Plain Air South, it probably was, right? And Dawn and I had a 14-hour drive, and I've never learned so much about the colour green in my life. But I made the stupid mistake of asking Dawn probably something like, what colour green would you paint that? And then it was the best thing I ever asked her, because it was like, that is different to that, and look further ahead. and I just couldn't tell you how interesting I found it. I remember getting down to Plain Air South. I rang Mum and she said, "How was your trip?" You know, I said, "Dawn has taught me everything about green." And Mum was like, "Oh, right, oh, okay." I can't remember any of it now, but it was just fascinating, you know. And I know that you push colour like that. It's a real skill. It is.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if people can just let down a little bit and trust you a little bit. I have a color course, video color course, and you know, it starts out very simply, and it starts out with just three, you know, the primaries and white, and all of these color combinations that you can make out of just those three colors. You know, and then as the course goes along, it gets more and more complex. But the point is that you don't, and this is what I got from Dawn, you don't really need any more than those three colors. The other stuff is a personal choice or a convenience or something you just want to have some fun with. But they're not, you know, you don't have to have those. And so it's great, you know, when people actually start to see something differently, and then they even know how to mix it too. You know,
yeah, that's
put it down.
That's the tricky bit, right?
That's the tricky bit.
Well, I want to ask you something. Because I'm now going to go to some of the questions folks wrote in. Otherwise, I will forget to ask them. But one of them actually was about your videos, and I know some of the answers. So I just want to ask you a generic question, which is what do you do with your videos, and how can people sign up? That was pretty much the premise of it.
Oh, sure. So I started doing these videos well before COVID. Let me just say that. So this is not just a, you know, and I decided to call it Nitty Gritty Videos because I film them myself, I edit them myself. You know, sometimes they're better than others. I also do my own toilets, but that has nothing to do with the videos. You know, I do all my own stunts sitting. And so these are meant to be really, I say simply produced, but you know, there's no such thing. I mean, it takes a day to edit a 10-minute video if you want it to look decent. But at any rate, but I wanted to do it that way because it meant if I had an idea for a topic, I could just do it. I could just get down to the meat of that topic, another nitty gritty. You know, I could get down to the nitty gritty, and also because I wanted it to be affordable. You know, and I knew the more people I hired, the more expensive it would be.
Yeah.
And so right now, I think there are 40 something that are on the streaming list. You know, there are a couple of different options, and you can be a subscriber, and there's a streaming option, and most of the videos are available there. There are a few, like the complete color course that you know took 6 months to put together, that you know is a standalone purchase option. But so you have a lot of choice there, but you can find it by literally putting in nittygrittyvideo.online.
Okay.
And so
I'll post it
if
too.
you forget that,
I'll post
if you forget that, or if you go, I have two different websites. One is for my art, and one is for my anything I do that's online learning based. And so the online learning site is just my name .online. And so there's information there on them as well. But yeah, it's great. I add new ones every month. And as long as you are a paid subscriber, you can watch them as many times as you want. You can just watch them forever, and, you know, and I add something new every month. And so
and I can vouch for you here and say they are brilliant. I think you're downplaying yourself when you say that, you know, you have to do it all yourself, so some are great and some are not so good. They're all great, really, because the thing is, we're not actually watching the videos that you're doing for the Oscar award nomination for Best Picture, right? We're trying to learn something. So the ones I've seen, you know, that you've sent me over the years, I've always got tons of information from. I want to say though, I think why I want to segue a bit here is because somebody, bless them, messaged in and said, you know, I'm gutted, I missed your Stays workshop. So I figured that we should say a couple of words about that, because had we got places to fill, you and I would be saying, come join us. But because we don't, what I think we should do is tell people about how amazing a time we're going to have. I'm kidding, that's really cool. But we have done this before, so we know that Stays is amazing, and Laurie's coming over next year. Like with all of the workshops, and Laurie had a ton of stuff cancelled too, but you know, it was pushed back. So we've filled the workshop, but I want folks to know that if they want to join the wait list, we were just talking about that earlier, that you can join it, and you just never know. I said it to a lady the other day, you never know, it's still next sort of June time, that somebody might not be able to come for whatever reason, so it's gutting, but I think it's really important for people to know why we keep the numbers smaller, so that you have a better time when you're there, that it's more intensive with the teacher and with the group, and I can then control you a little bit easier because there's not 50 of you, you know. So, but I think that's when we should say a little spoiler in this, nothing too much, but in 2023, Laurie and I are going to do something somewhere else. And we're not telling anybody, not even, no, Mark knows, Laurie's husband does know, he is allowed to know, because he's going to be with us, hopefully. But basically, if anybody wants information on that, just send either Laurie or I a message, and then we'll just basically save up some emails, and when we do send out that information, you know, you'll be the first top of the list type thing. But yeah, I think we can't really talk too much about Stays because it's full, and you know, when you think it's a little bit unfair to dangle a carrot, right? But that's
well, it's just you just have to sign up sooner.
You should sign up sooner, and B, that's why I was saying it though, as like a genuine piece of information people can get, is that if, okay, you've missed the boat on Stays, and you know, that's the way it is. Laurie has got other workshops, so you could look into those, and I'll post them again underneath. But B, that's why I wanted to segue to those nitty-gritties. When that chap had asked, you know, what could they do? Because not everybody can either A, afford it, B, get there, take the time off work, travel, have a passport, have a COVID passport now, they might need to, you know. There's a lot of things in a workshop, so, you know.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And that's why I did start doing those videos, because so many people are hungry for knowledge, but they don't have a big budget. You know, they would love nothing more than to go on a trip, but this is not going to happen, or their family situation, it's something, whatever. And I mean, that, like, to subscribe is $60 a year, a year, you know, and so, I mean, it costs me to do them. It costs me about $800 a month.
Jeez.
So I'm not trying to make money off of them, obviously. You know, I'm trying to barely eke out, you know, just enough so that I don't cry when I'm sitting in front of the computer.
Well, it's because it's so personal for you that you take the time to do them to a professional level. But you know, I just hope that they completely take off you, and that people really do want to subscribe, because I could understand why people would get a lot from it, you know.
Yeah, they're doing great. I'm very, very, very lucky. They're doing great.
Yeah,
doing really well.
Good. And then, okay, my last question, and this actually was not me asking this. This was Rosemary. She asked me to ask you. Basically, we talk about brushes a lot, and if you type in Simi and Laurie online, you'll see us talk a ton of times about brushes. So I decided tonight not to talk too much about brushes because, well, because we don't need to. But I thought it would be cool to show a video of your brushes spinning around and doing all the fancy schmancy stuff that they do, that Joe's filmed, and that's very cool. But then I want to ask you Rosemary's question, which was, why the Egbert?
Okay. Why not the Egbert?
So
because if you have that much room to put paint on, you can do some damage. You can do some real damage. Look at all that room.
Wait, let me play this video. It's a minute long, and then I think we should make it more difficult for you, and you have to answer why the Egbert in 2 sentences.
Okay, all right.
Okay, here we go. There we go. It looks so fancy. I'll tell you, when I see brushes flinging around like that, I feel really proud that we've been able to film them, you know, looking like an official product. So anyway, so there's one of Laurie's brush sets. I'll put the other links down below because, I mean, she'd have the store if she could. But there you go. That's one of 3. But now is your chance to answer why the Egbert.
Dear Rosemary, if you really want to do some serious damage, you need a real tool to do that with. Look at all of that real estate for holding paint. You see all that surface area for holding paint right there?
Got it, yeah.
So I can load that up and I can go to town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Most people have never even heard of an Egbert, so, you know, I know it's a brush you can't live without, but I think...
Oh, it's so fun.
Yeah.
They're so fun.
Is that why, though? Is it that it's fun? That it's totally changed how you can make brush strokes like that?
Oh, absolutely. It's interesting, though. I mean, with this brush, you know, first of all, I can stand way far back and really just have at it. Just have at it. But I can also get it. I mean, I could put a highlight on a pupil with this. I could be very precise with it as well. So don't be afraid by looking at it that it's, you know, because it can do a lot. It's very, very responsive. Makes a lot of different shapes, a lot of different marks. But I'm just having a good time touching it right now. Sorry. But it can also come to, especially when it's loaded with just the right consistency of paint. You know, that's another thing I do in the workshops. I have people come up and feel the paint on the brush off of my palette. And you get it loaded just right, and you could make the finest mark with it as well. So it's just a lovely little brush.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad I asked you because I know that you have an obsession with them, and every time Mum makes them, she's like, "That Laurie, these damn Egbers." So, but anyway, I'm going to wrap it up now. I've taken up way too much of your time, and I just want to say, as always, I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful to our friendship, which is outside of brushes and painting and everything else. I know that we'll be friends for life. And I am grateful, obviously, for you coming over next year. And I'm so glad that we can now finally, hopefully, fingers crossed and toes and everything crossed, finally properly do it. And yeah, thanks for giving us your time. I know that, well, I hope that a lot of people will find this useful like I do. So.
Well, I want to thank you. I want to thank you, and I know this is your thing, but you have to give me at least 30 seconds to say what a fabulous, fabulous, not just friend, but fabulous business that you and Rosemary have there. I mean, all of this work to build it and to make it what it is and to stand behind such fabulous products. I mean, before I ever became your friend, I was just grateful to find your company, and I love you to pieces.
Oh, by the way, that wasn't a fake. I actually had an itch under my eye. I didn't want to fake crying then. That I didn't want to do that. That's, thank you. I don't know what to say to that other than thank you. And we're so grateful. I can't believe it, but on the 1st, which is Thursday, right? I'll have been with Rosemary & Co. full time for 8 years. So straight out of law school on the 26th of June, I will never forget it. And on the 1st of July, I started, boom. And when I started with my mum, there was 5 of us. And now we have 28, 29 of us, so it's just going up. And that doesn't include, folks who are part-time with us and all the rest of it. And God help them on Christmas when we get more people come in. So it's huge. It's amazing that we're so lucky. And it's because of people like you. And I mean that. So I love you, Laurie.
Well, give a hug to your mom for me, okay?
I will, and you can in person next year, which is the main thing. In fact, it'll probably be before then, because we are now officially going to go to PACE and to the Portrait Society.
Oh, great,
next
great.
Year,
yeah, I'll see you then.
There you go.
Yay.
Okay,
Awesome.
I love
you. Love you. Thank you.